Yeah, my name is Larry Jonathan Arowolo. I'm a registered nurse and a diabetes educator. I have the honor of sharing one or two things with you on diabetes. It's something I'm so passionate about because of its immense impact on the life of people that have it and their families, right? And it's more than just a disease. It's something that affects the entire life of the person. That's why we go beyond just treating the individual to treating the family to educating the populace on diabetes, right? This way, when I teach my people, I tell them that this is as simple as saying you have too much sugar in your blood. So that's just it. You have too much sugar in the blood. Right. Now, so we are going to define some things to better understand that simple statement. So I'm going to define that sugar, then the blood, and then we'll build up from there. Right. So the sugar simply is the end product of all of the food that we eat. Every food, every kind of food we eat end up as glucose plus some other things, but majorly there is a lot of it end up as glucose, which we also call sugar. All right. And when this food, all of this food we eat ends up as glucose, they should be taken up from where they are being finally digested into the muscles and to the cells and to the tissues of the body to be used up for energy. The pathway to doing that is the blood. This is what happens. When the sugar is being produced, it should be taken through the blood to where it's going to be used up. But what's happening in diabetes is that it's not moving from the blood to the cells. So it's piled up in the blood, it's stored up in the blood, and it's causing a lot of issues with those that have it. So that is basically what happens. Now, why is it not moving from the blood? That's the next question. Why is it not moving away from the blood to where it's going to be used? Why is it stored? What's happening there is that we have an hormone called insulin. The insulin hormone is produced by an organ called the pancreas. So one thing or the other might have happened, and that insulin is either not present, all right, or is not sufficient. And let me break it down. From this explanation, we are going to define the types of diabetes. So it's not present at all, and then we have type 1 diabetes. So in type 1, basically, what happens is that there is an autoimmune reaction. We call it autoimmune reaction, where the cells of the body begins to eat themselves up, and it leads to what we call type 1. So it's the pancreas that normally produces insulin is not able to produce it because it has been destroyed, and the person doesn't have insulin to take up the glucose that has been produced from all the food we eat, take it up for it to transform to energy and other things that is useful for the body. So that's type 1 diabetes. Now we also have type 2, where it's possible that the pancreas is still there, not destroyed, but it's not producing enough insulin. And that is the most common type. The initial one I just described is commoner amongst children and adolescents. That's where you have it. It starts from the childhood. It has a childhood onset. All right. And when you discover that in children, they just have to continue taking insulin for the rest of their lives. But on the other hand, for type 2, which I'm going to describe now, that is where you have insulin not sufficient. Now, there are two things also about this type 2. It is not only that it is not sufficient, sometimes it is there. But the challenge is that the insulin and the glucose, this is how they operate. It's like saying insulin is the carrier, is the vehicle that carries glucose from the bloodstream to the cells, to the tissues, and makes it useful for energy. So what is happening in that case in type 2 is that sometimes it is either that there are not enough insulin. So let's assume we have 1,000 passengers and we only have one vehicle that can only contain 20. All right. So that is happening there. It's either that or that there is the vehicle, but the driver is not willing to drive. So in that case, we call it insulin resistance. So the driver, the insulin is resisting the glucose, so they are not able to bind together to be able to move and go to the necessary place where they ought to be used up for energy. Okay, so that's the two variables in type 2. They're the most common variables because knowledge is evolving day in day out about diabetes. We also have a type which exists amongst the pregnant women. We call it gestational diabetes, right? That is it. So basically, we have two types. Type 1, that is the one childhood onset. We also call it insulin dependent, and that's type 1 diabetes. It occurs in type children and young in adolescents actually. Then in type 2 we have those that's more common amongst young adults, middle-aged adults, particularly from 40 begins to set in. These are the two types of diabetes that we have.